All right, so we are here with the Clarks. I'm Cheryl,
I'm Greg.
and today we are going to be discussing all things relationship. And if you don't know, let me do it this way. Yay. Get us all both in. We have a new book out, and
You do?
we have a book. The book is called The Power of the Four A's. If you have not gotten this book, you want to get this book. And this is something that we want to talk about today. We also have Clark. Tell them what we have.
The Power of the Four A's Workbook.
So the workbook is interesting. It goes right along with the book, but you can't get the workbook online. You have to get it through us. So we want to talk about today appreciating each other's strengths, because I know that we are different and we have to begin to have that ability to rock out our strengths. And a lot of times we do not rock out each other's strengths. We do not see each other for who we are, because a lot of times we get stuck in that cycle. What do you think?
Well, cycles happen ever so often. It's true. Sometimes you can be stuck in a cycle, but then at the same time, that could be a good thing because that gives an opportunity for some attention to be had towards any particular situations. You don't want to be stuck permanently in a cycle. But if it seems like a washing machine that's just stuck in that particular code, and all of a sudden, you just got to get it off that code so the machine can keep working properly and be in its proper operation, then that can be done, and that can be of great assistance and help as well. So just recognizing the different cycles of life, it also influences those cycles and how you may appreciate each other or acknowledge each other's strengths within a relationship.
So let's read a little bit about in the first chapter. So we're going to share a little bit about appreciation today. So there's 4 A's. In the book, we cover 4 A's. The power of the 4 A's of acceptance, appreciation, affection, and agreement. So today we're going to go over a little bit about understanding what appreciation is in your with your spouse and with everyone. How do you do that? Like, I had to learn how to appreciate my spouse for what he does and what he doesn't do. So how do we learn to appreciate one another when at times we don't even know their strengths, and we start to, I guess, like bump heads too about that? What do you say, Clark?
Well, there are times where there can be friction that comes into play. Why? Because of how we may navigate. We may know how to do something in a particular way, not appreciating the fact that the other spouse just does it in a particular way. And so sometimes we could infer upon each other, just because I do it this way, it means I'm expecting my partner to do it that way. And that doesn't necessarily work. You have to be able to accept the fact that people do things in their own distinctive ways, even as a couple and especially as an individual.
I'm thinking about, there's a part on page 54. It says, never assume. Let your partner know who they are, and fully aware of how and what you are contributing to the marriage. Do not make assumptions. If you feel you are not being appreciated, let your partner know. So that happened to us a lot. I can say,
assume.
Yeah, because my grandmama used to say, if you assume, you make an ass out of yourself and somebody else. Isn't that right?
You make an ass out of you and me.
That's right. See? Well, I'll just say this. Life is about how you can have synergy together. What's wrong with you? You sleepy?
Well, it's been a long day. Know what it is? And don't mind me, especially if you're seeing this on video. It has nothing to do with me. I'm super excited about having this opportunity with you. But our trainer today, I'm realizing that our trainer, we did some we're part of a club now because health measures and stuff like that. And I'm starting to see she said it. She said, some of you by the end of the day or going towards the end of the day, you're going to start to really feel it in your body.
So you appreciated our trainer today?
I definitely appreciate it. I mean, look, she worked out behind, but I understand that, and we understand that health is a consistent action. You have to be in acceptance of what you've allowed yourself to entail, and also be responsible for the fact that of the matter is how can you be consistent, even being accepting in your relationship? It's consistency. You can't just accept somebody one day and then all of a sudden the next day you're disturbed by the way of their being or the way that they're doing things. No, it all comes about. It's like once you're able to bypass all the little isms that sometimes we create as humans, especially in our relationships, we can start to see that, wait a minute, okay, you can respect, like I can respect the nuances of my wife. I number one, I can't change them. So if I'm gonna go around talking about, oh, she has to change for this and change for that, I'm already going down and barking up the wrong tree. What I can do is, as we share in our book, is that you start to position yourself to say, wait a minute, okay, these are the things that this person does. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm perfect because I know I got my isms too. But these are the things that she does. Now, if they're not deal breakers, there's certain things you just sit there and you accept, not from the standpoint that it's a good or a bad thing, but it's just acceptance of the fact of the matter. That's what makes this person who they are. That's a part of their DNA. That's a part of who they have evolved to. And the same way, if that person has the same aspect for you and can respect the fact of where you have evolved to or still evolving, because none of us have completed or ended as of yet. So that means that evolutionary process, that thing to augment, to shape, iron sharpens iron, that happens over the long haul. And so acceptance and being able to accept your partner's strength is also an added value in regards to allowing yourself to accept you. Because if you can accept them, then you can accept you. And not even that. First, you do have to accept yourself. If you can accept yourself, then you can accept someone else the same way with love. You can't love someone if you don't love yourself. If you're not willing to take care of yourself, which means about your what you're putting in your mind, what you're putting in your body, how you're willing to be in a space where you're developing all the different aspects that make up who you are, and you're on a pathway. It doesn't mean that you have to climb up the mountain in one day, but you're on the pathway and you're being progressive, and that's what it's about. Every day you should be able to learn something about your partner, learn something about yourself, put it in a space where that acceptance now starts to grow. And now it goes from something that you're attempting to do or trying to be stimulated in, that now becomes par for the course, and it becomes the part of the ethos of what you're doing. And too many times we're looking for things just for someone to say, well, this is what I do, accept it. Okay, I can accept it, but you may present it in a way where you're presenting it to me as if you're about to hand me surf and turf on a garbage lid. And it's not that the food was bad. It's not that the chef did anything wrong. It's the presentation. So it goes back to even stuff that not stuff, but information that my wife has shared in regards to your tone, your your perspective on things. Sometimes, like I'm the person, I need a moment. I'm definitely the person that needs a moment. And it's not that I need a moment because I want to shut someone out. I need a moment because probably I'm processing. I'm assessing. Maybe that's me as based upon certain things that I've come to accept about myself. I'm a processor. And so if my wife is not accepting of that or wasn't accepting of that, it can create major conflict. Now, at the same time, my wife is a person at times, my wife wants to answer right then and there. She's going, I want, can we, oh, are we going to do this? I'm like, okay, I need a moment. Whereas before, I may not have responded, and that might have frustrated her because she's looking for a response. I'm processing it, but I wasn't in communication about my processing. But now that as we continue to evolve and we start to recognize that that's part of her strength, and now even as she has created great ideas, and I'm the person that come behind and make sure, okay, we're gonna poke the holes in it, and if it survives the hole poking, we're running with it. But if not, but that took years. That took an understanding. That took work. That took therapy. That took coaching. That took recognizing at times how you may have been the catalyst of some of the disagreements. Because at times we like to point our finger outside of ourselves, but sometimes you could be the person that's sharing or bringing out that vibration that causes the atmosphere of the disagreement or the argument to come to bear. But then we try to share it back to our partner and says, well, I'm arguing with you because I'm upset with you. You're arguing with me because there's certain angst in you. And now you projected that out, and now it's created a discord. And now once we can get to some level of peace, once we can get to some level of acceptance, once we get to that level that it's understandable that it is okay for that other person to be them. That's where it ultimately boils down to. That's a major strength in regards to whatever relationship that you're in. If you can't get to the point that you can recognize and understand and accept that that person is going to be them, then you're always going to be going up and fighting against yourself in a way. Because remember, when you find your partner, that's an aspect of you. So if you like to keep fighting yourself, you like to keep arguing with yourself, that's why there are days where sometimes I'm very contemplative, I'm very quiet. And then my wife will come to ask me, are you okay? You have an attitude, stuff like that? And I'll be the first quick to say, no, it's not an attitude. I'm just sitting here, I'm assessing. There's things that needs to be assessed, because it's better to assess from wisdom than just to pronounce yourself or to express yourself through emotion, or at that moment could be considered wrath. Because now it's like, okay, you want something abrupt, or do you want something that's slow cooked? It's tender, it's done refined in a refined way. There's no rush involved. And next, everyone gets a little bit of what they want. And that's where compromise comes in, along with acceptance. If you're in a relationship and you think you're supposed to get 100% of what you want, you're wrong. Let me explain it. Let me say that to you again. And that's why you need this book, The Power of the 4 A's. Go to gregandcherylclarke.com right now. If you don't have your copies, not copy. If you don't have your copies of this book, go right there to the website. It gets shipped to you directly from our printer. But if you are in a relationship, part of acceptance is recognizing that you're not supposed to get 100% what you want or what you wish for. Let me pull that back, because I don't utilize that word want, because the Lord is my shepherd that I shall not want. So wanting only begets more wanting. So when you start to recognize, if you're in a relationship and it's like your way the highway, or if that person's not, your partner is not giving you everything what you want, you start throwing all these darts on the wall and you're saying, wait a minute, this person's only giving me 85% of what I need. Girlfriend or boyfriend, you're doing better than most people. Now, if you're doing something where you can see that this person is not putting an effort in, and it seems like there's a 50-cent level or some sort of, lackadaisical, and it's not really balanced, and you feeling yourself having to give 150%, because remember, it's supposed to start at 100. Y'all both are supposed to be playing at 100. But we don't play at 100. Let's keep it real. We wish to play at 100. The same way that in our brains, we only use about not even 7 or 8% of our true brain power. But at the aspect, you're looking for your partner, knowing that you are imperfect, to be perfect. Because that's what 100 means. 100 means that this person is perfect. That means anything that you wish for, anything that you're desiring, anything that is agreed upon, which is the 4th A in our book, that means they're doing for you. It means you're walking on this cornucopia, this cloud nine, this rarefied, cherubims and seraphims are flying around you. That doesn't exist.
May I say something there? You did some great points there in regards to our life that we have, and we all in relationships, no matter if you're married, no matter if you're dating, no matter if you're in business relationship, it doesn't matter. We are all in relation with one another. So the thing is that how do you begin to move the atmosphere of how you can create. And we, in the book, it's very simple where we had this little part here on page 54, if you do have it. And we talked about assumption. And assumption, when we look at that and understand what assumption really is, it can destroy your relationship. And the thing is, he didn't call me, or he doesn't understand me, or she doesn't understand me, or he was supposed to make dinner that night, or take out the garbage, or whatever it is that the assumption is there. He doesn't love me, or he doesn't say that. So the thing is, the assumption, we get to rolling that in our heads, and now it doesn't look like it's clashing. It's clashing. So in order, like my husband said, you have to be in a conversation with someone. We are not mind readers. However, this is where a lot of times, I was just talking to my husband the other day about how infidelity and things come in play in the relationship, when we don't have conversations and we expect that spouse to be mind readers. When you expect a spouse or someone in the relationship to be a mind reader, your relationship is going to cause havoc, because no one can read your mind. But if you have an opportunity to say these assumptions, that you or he can, or the relationship can begin to grow. Because if you say what's in your mind effectively without disempower hurting anyone, that was big for us. Because I think that the assumption is that you should already know. I mean, don't you see my face? And didn't you see what I just did? You should already know. Like in the car, we were in the car just a few minutes ago, and my husband said something to me, and then he looked at a little. I said, "Well, what happened?" I didn't want to assume that I knew. He said, "Well, guess what I said." And I said, "Well, I don't want to guess." And then when he told me what it was definitely not something I was thinking about. You have to be able to get in communication with anybody around you to get the true meaning of what it is. Because if you don't, if you keep assuming, you're going to make an ass out of yourself and that person.
Well, we both got asses, and you don't want your ass to get too big.
What?
Where it gets to the point that, it can't fit through the door. And this is what I mean by can't fit through the door. I'm not talking about from a physical sense. You can create an atmosphere where the assumptions start to make an ass so big that it can't fit through a door, because it's really your ego.
That's
really,
good.
Really is your expression. That's why I say it's not from a physical sense. We must recognize you shouldn't be adding to your bottom line and assumptions, and then recognize, like, why does it seem like there's turmoil? It's even from a biblical standpoint. There was a king who said he'd rather be all the way up in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
He has 1,000 rooms in his castle, but he'd rather be up in the tower than to be around someone with wrath. Now, that can go both ways. Because see, we can go by the assumption that it's always just, the woman is nagging and this, that, and the third. And that's not necessarily true. It's not about being, simplistic only on one side or another. We as men can be asses and be total buttholes as well. Now, where it really comes into is an aspect of, how are the lines and the lanes of communication established? Are there lines and lanes of communication? Are you in expectation for some level of atmosphere that is not truthful? Some of you get caught up in, and I'm going to say this very vehemently, some of you can look at certain lifestyles or certain things that are posted around you and start to assume that stuff just comes like this. That takes work. That takes effort. That takes some level of gumption and action to generate some of the lives that you see some of these people who are portraying. And I said that word correctly. Portray. Not even portray. Portray. Because that means there was some producer out there that helped them shape the storyline that they're actualizing for you. Now you're running around trying to keep up with the Joneses or the whomevers. But that's not to say this, and that becomes a lack of acceptance. Because then you may infer upon someone else, how come we ain't living like that? How come we don't do this? How come we don't travel here? And then, like, whoa. Okay, a wise woman builds her house. A wise man accepts the fact that he gives his woman a home for her to shape and to cultivate it. Now, that means that's partnership. That's not about one person going out there killing themselves so the other one can feel comfortable and perfect. It's about, wait a minute, how are we gelling as a couple? What are the things that you're taking on? What are the things that I'm taking on? What are we taking on together? Because the more and more that we do things together, that shows the levels of acceptance is being stimulated and the foundation is firmer. And that's why, like, when it comes to most relationships, even infidelity comes based upon some aspect of ego. But really, what really becomes one of the points that a lot of relationships start to become hindered is because the communications around money, resources. Mm-hmm. Those communications, and there's not an acceptance of saying, like, yo, we have to sit here and really talk about. Mm-hmm. Like, even before we came on the air tonight, my wife saw a transfer and she asked me a question. Oh, Greg, I saw you did X, Y, and Z. And I was able to thoroughly explain, okay, this came in, this is taking care of a responsibility that, that we have.
And that you're responsible for taking care of.
And now but see, it'd have been something if I'd have sat there and be like, gotten my feelings, like that Drake song, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there, oh my gosh, she asked me about what? No, it's simple. It's going here and it's taking care of that. And it's like, wait a minute, oh, that's right. This bill is due, and we're taking care, and we're becoming wise stewards through communication, through acceptance.
May I say something else here? What also, we talk about communication, but what also really binds us together is our spiritual walk. I think that when we began to get spiritually mature as an individual and as a couple, we began to see some things really, really take off. Because as we began to pray together, as we began to move together spiritually and financially, and things began to open up for us. And I think as we began to really cultivate some spiritual laws inside of our relationship, the love that we have for ourselves first and the love that we have for each other, I believe, grew.
Of course, because now one thing started happening. The clouds of discord started to disappear. And why do I call it the clouds of discord? Those assumptions are clouds of discord. Those stories that both of us were making as individuals within the dynamic of the couple started to disappear. Why did those stories start to disappear? Because now, instead of my brain, my mind becoming the story making machine that it is, and I'm allowing I'm allowing my feelings to have some sort of influence over what this story that I'm creating in my brain. Now that I'm in communication, is being uttered so it can become an idea, and I can hear what my partner's idea is. And now there's some viability now. Okay, wait a minute. It's not in my head. It's not stuck here. Now that it's out here, now we can do a little volley. Now we can act like we play a little tennis. Okay, let it go back and forth. And all of a sudden, as we go back and forth, we get to some semblance that she's not winning the game or the set, and I'm not winning the game or the set. Next, it ends up being a draw. And it's a good draw because now you are drawing from the well of possibility. You're drawing from this well of saying, wait a minute, I'm not expecting you to do all this without some sort of catalyst or some sort of influence or investment for me. She shouldn't be expecting herself to be doing something without some sort of inflection or investment on my end. And it's not just about resources, it's about time, focus, energy. Some of these things have nothing to do with money, but then they start to turn into money aspects, especially if you're not in communication around it, because there are too many asses running around. So now the ego and the assumptions are still running around because there's no communication. And where there's no communication, that's when stories start to get generated. That's when all of a sudden people want to hang out at happy hour a little longer. Or this one is feeling, wait a minute, I texted him. How come he didn't respond to me back like this? Okay, y'all are both starting to sow seeds. Those are seed sowing. Y'all are both sowing seeds at this moment that's not conducive for you to have a viable relationship. And it has nothing to do with love.
I thought about what you just said.
Nothing to do with love.
I thought about what you said. So my husband was like, you're standing on a happy hour. My husband used to stay out in the supermarket.
Hey, that was my happy
It
hour.
was his happy hour.
That
He
was my
would just
happy
go to the supermarket and just be there. He would just go to the supermarket, and you got to know when you're like, okay, I'm just gonna just go. You got to know who you are. Well, let's open up some questions. You want to open up some questions out that everybody
Please.
have? You go. We are in on 3 different platforms. I do believe on street. We are on Facebook, and I see Janetta is responding. So you can actually talk and ask your question there. If you're on Instagram, the Greg and Cheryl Clarke, we can actually bring you up live and ask your question. And in Clubhouse, I'm under my name, Cheryl Clarke. You can go ahead at the bottom. There is a little raise your hand. Go ahead and tap that, and we can bring you up to the stage. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want a topic to be said, go ahead and do that. Actually, we can bring you live on over here too on the StreamYard. All you have to do is ask, and we can bring you live, and we can do a split screen. So go ahead and do that. If you have a question right now, we just want to make sure that we're answering anything. We want as real talk with Greg and Cheryl Clarke. What does that mean? That means there's nothing off the board here. We may be talking about our strengths, maybe talking about appreciation, maybe talking about assumptions, and that is all good. But there's nothing that we're very transparent about what our lives have been and what they are. We have come from bankruptcy. We have come from foreclosure. We have come from 6 children, failed businesses, working businesses. We have been on a roller coaster ride together. And we are now in a space and a place where now we're sharing who we are in a space of where we can begin to move the needle in a more prosperous, spiritual, financial area where we are, as a Black couple, began to move the needle. A young Black couple, because we got married very young. And so we had to learn how to grow up in the marriage. And neither one of us had the best role models for our biological parents. We were just talking about that earlier today, our parents, and how our parents is how they are, and we just have to laugh because they just made us who we are, and you know what? I thank God for Dorothy Clarke and Gladstone Clarke.
Jesus Christ.
Because Gregory Clarke wouldn't be here.
True.
Gregory Clarke wouldn't be here.
And the same way that we have to thank Jeffrey Young and Maddie Graham, because if it wasn't for those two coming together, there would not be a Cheryl Young who eventually became a Cheryl Clarke. As you can see, let me behave myself.
What you gonna say?
No, I said you're such a ham. That you go talk about a ham sandwich. This is a ham.
You know what? You have to laugh in your. If you have to laugh, you have to laugh. Did you call me a ham sandwich?
No, when they talk about a ham, it's not a negative.
Did you call me a ham sandwich?
I called you a ham sandwich.
Okay, at least
you like me to eat, but you like me to eat, right?
What
you
kind
do
of cheese?
Like me to eat,
what kind
right?
of cheese?
But you do like me to eat, right?
We're going to.
So do you like me to eat, right?
Going on.
No, I see. There's plenty of women. Hey, look. We've been together over 30 years. Oh, you don't want to go there. I can go there with you.
Let me tell you something. My husband loves his wife. I can tell, and he loves his wife.
That Luther Vandross noise don't start with me.
Does anybody have any questions?
See, that's why she wants to shut me up. Don't go there with me.
Does anybody have any
leg
questions?
shaking?
Yeah. Oh Lord.
The quickening
I'm about to fall out the chair.
Quickening of the spirit. The quickening of the spirit. As the release, I'm telling you. As our friend Larry Reed said a couple of weeks ago, and we screamed it out on this platform. He said, some of y'all need to, and I won't say the word, but if you know where I was about to go, you know where I was about, and it's true. And know what? In a relationship, if you're not allowing yourself, no, this is dead truth, because it's not only from a health standpoint, but from a standpoint of, being beyond just using sex as something that's just, that's just to benefit me. No, it's supposed to be something that you're taking care of your partner. That's what God created as a symbolism and as actions for you to be in one and in partnership with your partner. And they even said, most times if the sex life is kind of screwy and is non-existent or is going through a little ebb and flow, the relationship is a little rocky. Now,
well, it starts about the intimacy outside of it. I don't even know how we got on this subject.
no, it's true. It's but see that show, even that intimacy out of it, that goes to all those little nuances and acceptances. It still goes back to acceptance, because you accept your partner to the point where it's like, you know what, your partner walks by and you feel like doing some little, frisky or whatever, or you may pinch or grab, or just to allow that person to know that, you know what, I'm still, I'm still interested, I'm still desiring. So there is still a level of acceptance there. Now that acceptance is going to turn into affection, because now you're translating the energy, because the energy never dies. So you're taking it from an acceptance, like, I accept my partner. Or even as men, we like the fact when, y'all women will catcall us, especially your man, you do those little things to get our attention. All of a sudden that makes us feel like, you know what, I want to make sure I go take care of my woman, because she's helping to accentuate and help in that area of the ego. And even then, that is acceptance, because you're there to help accept and feed some and be a depositor into your partner, both of y'all. It's not one way. It's not about, oh, this one better go take care of her man. It says, okay, no, stop now. Let's keep it real. It means you better be taking care of her. Yeah, I go out there and flip the bills. I said, whatever agreement. See, that's why y'all need our book. The Power of the 4 A's. Why? Because now you're starting to see what are the aspects of acceptance. Where are those areas that you're appreciating each other and making sure that you're accentuating strengths and not weaknesses, because we all have weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And if we continue just to allow and always focus on weaknesses, that's just kind of showing where your overall attention is going, and it's not going in a positive way. Then you're talking about affection. Affection is an offshoot of the first two. Because now if there's some acceptance and there's some appreciation, then the affection is going to come. And affection just doesn't start, like some sort of scheduled, okay, we're in the bedroom now, this is what we're doing. No, it starts outside the bedroom. It starts with those interactions. It starts with the communication. It starts with the fact that we're open about those things that allow our relationship to work. And that is, it could be your kids, it could be your finances, it could be all the other things that if you are really in communication as a couple, what you have decided to talk about and make sure saying, oh, these are the things that we're doing as a couple. This is the legacy that we're building, and you can put your last name at the back of it, at the end of it. This is what blank legacy is doing. So that means y'all are both responsible. It's not about the man that's supposed to be doing this. This is not Leave It to Beaver, and this is not the 1950s. We're in the 21st century, and we at a status point that we recognize the fact that partnership works. Not a hierarchy, even though there are still certain responsibilities that both partners have and both individuals have. But technically, even in that hierarchy, it's not that the king is here and the queen is down here. No, they're pretty much here at the same level. Now, one can allow themselves to be submissive, not from the standpoint of being weaker, but recognize the fact, okay, I'm going to flow with what your thought is. And there are times that a wise king knows how to say, I'm going to flow with what you're saying. So it's not about, okay, I'm a king or I'm a queen. No. Whoa. I noticed that my wife is a little bit much more adept at that. It's just like if you've seen some mighty kingdoms, and you can go in your history books. There were times that woman was the strongest advisor to that king. And she was the one really running the kingdom.
So like my husband, so I'm the better talker, but my husband is the better the one that does the negotiating once I'm in the door. So I can cultivate, and he is at the back end to close the deal. You have to be able to know who and what the transaction is about. You have to know when to be able to play that. You have to know how to be able to do that and to walk in synergy. Because if you do not, what will happen is you will be on an uphill battle, and neither one will win.
Oh, this goes on YouTube channel.
Because this is really important. So if you have any questions, please ask them please, 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 please. This is where you can just ask your questions now.
Come on up in
Come on
Clubhouse.
up in the club. Yes, Irene, ask your question.
Hi, and thank you for opening this room. And I wanted to ask, because I know that the both of you are now in business together. Did it always start out that were you always in business together, or did one of you start and then the other one came on board? That's the question. I'm complete.
I would say initially, as when we started to, I would say going back to about 1998, and we recognized the fact that we were already 2 children in, and we knew that number 3 was on the way. And a wise woman knows how to recognize you don't wait till the last minute to make a choice or make a decision. So while she was still pregnant with our 3rd child, and now mind you, she's working on a particular position and I'm working in my field, and she's already seeing that, wait a minute, the only bills that she had, and let me give context to this, at the time, all she had was the telephone bill that she was responsible for, the telephone bill. We ain't talking about cell phones yet. We wasn't rocking out like that yet. But she had the telephone bill and she had to take care of child care. Everything else was hers, and we took, and I managed everything else. When she started to recognize, like, wait a minute, with this 3rd child, even if she went back to work after her maternity leave, the 6 weeks that, regardless of whatever the company was going to give her, it was like, wait a minute, if I go back there, now I have 3 children, you might as well say, I'm working to pay for childcare. That didn't make any sense. So she was already doing her due diligence to establish herself as what we call here in the New York City area as a family daycare. She was establishing herself. She was going through doing these different things. We was assisting her in the background when it comes to formation of the business. But initially, that was Cheryl's baby in the beginning, because she recognized the fact that, the woman likes nice stuff, and she wanted to make sure she had some dollars still coming into her pocket. But at the same time, she was building her house and creating a legacy. So she started it from the standpoint of recognizing not to wait till something came to the end, but she started to be a little bit proactive. And then after a while, when things started to grow and she said she needed assistance, that's when I came into the back end and started helping her, and then started flourishing, and we started doing some things of expansion based upon the fact that she was really, really you might say the face. She was the energy. She was the PTA president. She was in with the principal. She was handing out them flyers. She was talking to those parents. She was doing them Christmas shows and anything that she needed to do. That's why I said, as much as I joked in a lovingly manner about calling her a ham sandwich, no, she has the ability to go out there, and she's a go-getter. And usually most people who, from the old thought of being a ham, is someone who is not scared to talk to people, who is not scared to be in the spaces where it's going to be beneficial, not only just for herself, but for others. So, being a ham, for me, calling her a ham sandwich to me is a way, even for me to explain it, is a way of me giving her props, because I have no problem with that. She can be the ham, but just like there's Oprah and there's Stedman. Oprah can do all that. Oprah! But everyone knows Oprah wouldn't be Oprah if Stedman wasn't doing all the back end stuff in the background. So it's okay to be that.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
It did.
Okay, good. Yeah. So
I do have another question.
Yes, please.
So, you know how they say that there is I don't know if they say it's the 7-year itch, or I don't know if I want to call it 7-year itch, but the year is between years 6 and 7 where it'll kind of like make or break your marriage. And I'm just wondering if that was true for you. I know for my own marriage, that has happened in my marriage, but I just wanted to know if that was like true for the two of you as well.
I would say that's true for any. See, there's different stages. Think of it this way. In our natural bodies, we go different. Even before I talk about natural bodies, spiritual bodies. Every 7 years, you're going to get a different spiritual body. And there's a reason why you have to continue to allow yourself to evolve. And so what they call that 7-year itch in a relationship is basically where it is now that you went through the first body of your relationship. Now, regardless of what decisions and agreements, and as we talk about in the book, The Power of the 4 A's, all those things that you've established within those A's, within those first 7 years, it's about to evolve. Once you get to year 7 and beyond, now 7 to 14, that's going to be a different one. 14 to 21 is a different one. Right now, we are about to be, let's see, in March, we're going to be 27 years. So we're in our fourth body as a relationship. We're in that fourth dispensation. The people that are sitting in front of you now are definitely not the people that got married in 1995.
Absolutely not.
There's no way. So you're talking about if you're talking about from our relationship standpoint, between 95 and 02, 1995 to 2002, which was the year our last child was born. You're talking about there were
the honeymoon phase was over. It was over. So to answer your question too, like we talked about that honeymoon phase. You talk about that a lot. That honeymoon phase, you go through that little honeymoon, and then children start to come, bills start to come, and then you start to really have to see where is it that, and then where's my voice in the matter? How could, and who is this person? You start arguing about socks. You start arguing about toothpaste. And it's really not about the socks. It's really not about the toothpaste. It's really about what is it, the binary thing that is distracting the relationship for it to begin to move into the powerful relationship we're supposed to have. That's where you really are working on it. That's where therapy comes in. That's where coaching comes in. That's where getting mentors come in. You are not going to be able to do this relationship on your own. You need support. You need support. If you are, especially if they, and then we also wrote a book with Making Money with Your Honey too, where it's statistically shown that couples that are in business together usually end up in divorce. It's statistically shown that couples that are entrepreneurs and business owners together don't make it. And we have come up so much against the wall because the roles we have clear lines now. We do not talk about our business in our bedroom anymore. We used to bring that in our bedroom. That is not the place.
Laptops be all up in the bed.
Oh my God, we had laptops in the bed. It was just, we had the office in our bed, and we had to begin to draw the line, and we had to become the laptop was in between us.
It was screwing up the hard drive time.
Exactly.
There was no real hard drive time. There was no opportunity for software.
And you know something,
or upgrades, right. Or
You're
updates, right. Or everything else going on because the computer was in the way.
But you know something, Irene, I will say this. When you are in a relationship with someone and you're in business with someone, the lines and the roles have to be identified and defining, and then stay in it, and then know when you're talking to Mr. Clarke, and know when I'm talking to Miss Clarke, and know when I'm talking to husband, and know when I'm talking to wife, because 2 different roles, 2 different places. So when you do that, when you in that mode, I'm like, Clarke, we need to have a business meeting. And you know what? We go out, we have a business meeting, and my husband takes that receipt and he writes it on there, Clarke and Clarke, Forever Young LLC. And he said, this is our business meeting that we had. We talked about business. You keep business with business. You keep romance with romance. It's not the same. We got to stop mixing the two. Did that answer your question, Irene?
Yeah, that was it. I'm sorry. Last question.
No, go ahead. You're making this great.
So last question. What do you guys think about having a close relationship with the opposite sex? So you having a close relationship with a male and him with a female, whether they're married or unmarried. What do you guys think about that?
It all depends on the agreement that's established with you. I'll say this. I've never really ever been a jealous person. Now, what I would say is that I do my best to create an atmosphere where, whatever's within this circle, doesn't get messed with. And that includes my wife, children, family members, things that we're deciding to do that we made agreements upon that we're going in a particular direction around. So it doesn't really become a jealous point. And at the same time, I've never had that experience from my wife as well, where she was jealous or had to worry about certain interactions with me with the opposite sex. If anything, I was more oblivious to it.
Yeah, he was. I mean,
there were days that she used to tell me people were flirting with me, and I'd be like, yo, I didn't even see it. I wasn't even thinking about it. And that made it even easier because it's like,
oh, could you help me move the table? And I'm like, Clark, I said, she's flirting with you. He's like, she is? I'm like, so this is the thing, I think mainly is that the trust factor there, because we both own businesses. So we're going to interact with different sex. And that is the truth, just different genders. We are going to interact with them. My boundaries are so clear. Once you are clear with your boundaries, I see men in my office very clearly. By myself, closed doors. I'm a therapist, so the door is closed. So I have things that set up. Like we have things as a woman. Like I'm closest to the door. And there's things that I have. We had a button that we push. You got to make sure that your boundaries are clear. And I had one man to really overstep my boundaries, and I knew how to really put. I backed out of that. That my supervisor handled it, because there are certain things that's going on in your relationship. And even if your boundaries are clear, you have to have your boundaries very, very clear and let them know I'm married. I'm serious about my relationship, and there's nothing that can interrupt that, and you are responsible for your behaviors. There was somebody that we were coaching. I remember this, and he stepped out on the marriage, and he was blaming her for not getting the affection. This is what it is. If you are not getting that from your spouse and you step out, that is on you. That is on you. You have to be able to control your lower end. You have to be able to control, because guess what? The infidelity doesn't start and when you do the interaction. It starts in the mind. It starts what you're talking. So I would say trust and boundaries is super important if you're going to have opposite sex relationships, platonic. Did that answer it?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions from any of the people in the speakers gallery?
I like that.
That wish to ask a question before. If not, then we can always, make sure that we figure out a way to get this uploaded to the Greg and Cheryl YouTube page, and so this can be, can be a blessing and help to someone else as well. That's what it's about. It's about share if you care. And reason why, accepting each other's strengths within the relationship is so important is that if you can accept your partner, then that's one less thing that you have to use any energy to focus upon. Your energy is very important. Mm-hmm. Time is a resource. See, we talk about resources, and people will automatically start talking about, investments and money and dollars and crypto and all this other stuff. Time is the most valuable resource we all have. And if you're sharing most of your time on things that are not building a conducive life with your partner, then you're wasting time. Money is the easiest thing to get back, even if you lose money.
Not time.
Time. Yes, we can't even go back. Today is Thursday, and on the date of this taping, we can't go back to Wednesday. Can't even go back to Tuesday. So if
November 18th, 2021 will never come again.
So if you're not enjoying or being present, and recognizing that you can use that resource of time, and then how to expand upon it so it can move in an exponential way. And that's how people who become affluent and prosperous do. You figure out how to utilize the time around you in an effective manner by duplication in systemic ways, and next thing you know, you have a system that works, and all of a sudden you're wondering why you may have lived in the hood and now all of a sudden you living in the suburbs, someplace beautiful. But it's all based upon what you use that time for. It's not something to be messed with. And as we close in regards to acceptance, time is a major resource when it comes to acceptance, because it's quicker and more expedient that you can accept your partner, then just think of it that way. Suppose you can take that right off your list. Like it was my wife said, in our relationship, we don't have that. We don't have to spend any of our energy talking about, do I have to trust my wife? Do I have to trust my husband? Think about that. That can be either 5%, even if say 6% of the energy expended upon this relationship. That 5-6% you can never get back. And people say, oh, it's only 5-6%. There are people who make billions of dollars a year off of pennies. Oh, I only make 4 cents of transaction. And you sit there and say, oh, you only make 4 cents of transactions. How many transactions do you do a day? It says, oh, yeah, we average, 10 million transactions, 12 million transactions. You're sitting there, oh, you wouldn't mind them 4 cents then. So we have to look at it as time as well. Time is our most valuable resource. And when you can accept yourself, and even if those things that you don't accept yourself, as my wife stated, go find coaches, go find mentors. And if it's exacerbated to a point, then you go need and find a psychotherapist that can help you unpack that and bring it to a stage where it can be beneficial in your life. And then once you have your acceptance, or you're in your stage of evolving in your acceptance, accept your partner. Because if you can accept yourself, you accept your partner. And if that's working, you're going to have hardly any drama. Now, it's not saying that you're not going to have disagreements, and you will have arguments which are healthy, but it won't be anything that will pull you asunder. So I'm complete.
Well, all right. Thank you so much for joining inside of Clubhouse. Remember to visit CherylClarke.com. You can get your copy of your book. And may we go off saying, remember that you can stand in your power with the 4 A's, whatever relationship that you are going through, whatever you're in, keep it up, and may God continuously bless you. I see you know while I keep it up. I like that. Whatever you're going to be doing, keep up the momentum. Peace and blessings. Have a powerful day. All right. And this room is closing in 5, 4, 3.